There's a reason other animals in the social jungle don't notice you. Why they walk over your territory. Why they test your patience, push your boundaries, question your value. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're seen as harmless prey. You show your tracks too easily. You care too openly. You try to be liked before being feared. And in Machiavelli's jungle, being liked without being feared is the same as being ignored. The jungle doesn't fear kindness, it fears mystery. You've been taught your whole life to be seen as a good, friendly creature. Smile more, be open, be nice first, be easy to approach. But the problem is, other animals don't respect harmless creatures. They use them. Because what's visible is predictable, and what's predictable can be controlled. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote not to comfort, but to warn. A ruler who is not feared will always be hunted. It doesn't mean you should become violent. It means you must become unreadable. Because in a clearing full of noisy animals, the one who stays silent is the one everyone watches. Not because they expect a funny sound, but because they expect something they can't quite name. That's the goal. To be watched. Not for attention, but for caution. When you're not a threat, you're a tool. Look at your life. How many times were you passed over until you moved away from the group? How many times did they come back only after you became silent? How many people only respected your boundaries after you marked them clearly, with distance? That's because you were playing the friendly game, and they were playing the survival game. They knew. You'd explain, you'd forgive, you'd stay, you'd apologize first, you'd never fight back. And once another animal knows you won't fight back, they attack first and they win. Machiavelli saw it in politics. You see it in your relationships, your career, your own home. Other animals don't test the dangerous ones. They test the emotionally open ones, because they know your empathy will stop you before your pride does. But once you become a threat, even quietly, they flinch before they speak. They second-guess their tone. They prepare more carefully. They hesitate to disrespect. Why? Because now you might not bark, but you might bite. The power of the unseen predator, and they expect you to react. That's how they measure control. Can they make you flinch? Can they make you explain? Can they make you chase? Can they make you soften? Every time you do, they mark you safe. Every time you don't, they mark you dangerous. And dangerous doesn't mean wild, it means unreadable. Machiavelli understood that the moment other animals can predict your emotions, they will shape your future around their needs, not yours. But when they can't, they wait, they watch, they obey. You've spent your whole life trying to be liked first. Now, try being feared quietly, not with growls, not with loud threats, with inconsistency. With silence, with the refusal to show your wounds on command, because the animal who walks in with a wagging tail is forgettable, but the one who walks in with no need to speak, he becomes a presence, and presence lasts longer than voice. If you're finding value in this deep dive, take a moment to subscribe to the channel to continue your journey with us. Machiavelli never picked up a weapon unless he had already won with how he was seen. Because in the real world, it's not about what you are. It's about what others think you're capable of. You don't need to be dangerous, you need to be perceived as dangerous. And how do you do that without saying a word? You control what people see. You control your energy. You control the silence. Because in every social gathering, one rule applies. They fear what they don't understand, and they respect what they fear. Strategy 1. The hidden clause. Never show your entire hand. The loud animals? They show everything. Their hunger, their fears, their plans, their quick reactions. They talk, they prove, they show off. And the more they show, the easier it is to calculate how to beat them. But Machiavelli didn't teach being open. He taught being hidden. He knew. If they can read your tracks, they can replace you. If they can't, they prepare for you. So you say less. You react slower. You keep your true intentions wrapped in mist, not to confuse, but to control how you're understood. Because in a jungle where everyone's trying to be seen, the one they can't define is the one they obsess over. Strategy 2. The unbreakable gaze. Don't defend, don't explain. Nothing breaks the idea of strength faster than defending yourself. If someone criticizes you and you explain yourself, you confirm their attack hit you. If they call you distant and you defend your silence, you reveal you care more than they thought. Every time you explain your behavior, you say one thing: you still have emotional access to me. But Machiavelli would stare blankly, he'd nod, he'd smile, and he'd say, "Noted." That's how you become a threat. You hear everything and give back nothing. Strategy 3. The shifting silhouette. Send mixed signals on purpose. A threat doesn't need to be aggressive. It needs to be unpredictable. Animals don't fear what they understand. They fear what doesn't make sense. Machiavelli would praise an ally today and replace him tomorrow, smile during conversation and then go silent next week, offer kindness and then disappear without explanation. Why? Because nothing creates emotional unease like inconsistency. And emotional unease leads to psychological control. You don't have to be cruel. You just have to be confusing enough that people stay respectful, because they don't want to test the version of you they haven't met yet. This is what modern people call mystery, what Machiavelli called a necessary illusion. Strategy 4. The stillness of the predator. Appear composed in chaos. The greatest form of intimidation? Self-control when others are panicking. When people gossip, stay silent. When they yell, blink slowly. When they panic, speak calmly. When they insult, smile slightly. That's how you show one thing: you can't shake me. And if you can't shake me, you can't move me. And if you can't move me, you should be afraid of what I might choose to move next. That stillness, that refusal to fight back, that's when you stop being just another animal and become a presence they orbit. Machiavelli would rather say one smart phrase at the end of a conflict than deliver 100 defenses during it. Because the fewer words you need, the stronger each one becomes. And if people can't predict your words, they start adjusting their behavior before you speak. That's not just talking, that's command. When people hear threat, they think violence. When they hear dominance, they think control. But Machiavelli knew better. He wasn't obsessed with power through force. He was obsessed with power through presence. Because the most feared people in any room are the ones who do the least and are still noticed the most. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Not because fear makes you mean, but because fear makes others respect your silence. You don't need to strike. You only need to make people believe you might. And that belief is stronger than any argument you could ever deliver. The invisible boundaries, making disrespect costly. The unthreatening are invited to be disrespected. Let's talk psychology. When another animal doesn't fear losing you, they take your time, talk over you, demand more than they give, expect explanations, and ask for favors without giving anything back. Because your presence has no perceived weight. You're safe, predictable, kind, accommodating. And in a Machiavellian jungle, those are not virtues. They are weaknesses begging to be tested. So what does a threat look like? Not a weapon, not shouting, not revenge. A threat is saying nothing after being disrespected, remaining calm in the face of gossip, being unpredictable without ever being emotional, disappearing from a room and making people feel your absence. That's fear. And fear is your leverage. You're not just a person, you're a consequence. Once people experience your detachment, your withdrawal, your refusal to chase, they start connecting your silence with a shift in their world. When you stop replying, they reflect. When you say less, they overthink. When you don't show up, they notice. Now your absence becomes a mirror. Not because you punished them, but because they suddenly realize, without his presence, I don't know how to measure myself anymore. That is psychological warfare. Machiavelli didn't need armies to create fear. He needed silence, distance, uncertainty. Because when people can't read your next move, they either retreat or try to win your favor again. And both outcomes serve you. The wolf's wisdom: building untouchable presence. Build the wolf, kill the dog. There's a reason stories about becoming a wolf go viral. Because everyone feels the pain of being the emotional dog, loyal even when betrayed, friendly even when mocked, obedient even when ignored. And everyone wants to become the wolf. But what they don't realize is this: the wolf doesn't bark, he simply watches, and when he moves, no one is ready. That's who you must become. You don't bark, you don't explain, you don't beg, you calculate, you withhold. You let others feel the chill of your presence without ever raising your tone. The unforgettable are often quiet. Here's the irony: loud people are remembered in the moment. Still, people are remembered deeply. Because after you leave a room, people replay what they can't define. Why didn't he say anything? Was he testing us? What did that silence mean? They can't move on because you never gave them easy answers. And when people can't close the file, they reread it forever. That's how threats are born, not from action, but from potential. You don't have to say a word to dominate a room. Because most power isn't spoken, it's signaled through posture, through presence, through what you don't do when everyone else is trying to be seen. Machiavelli would not bark commands. He would observe. He would let others reveal themselves. And then, without raising his voice, he'd make them fear the space between his words. Mastering the predator's habits. You want to become a threat? Start with daily habits that make people question your reach. Habit 1. Never be the first to react. When someone says something offensive, a bait, or triggering, wait. Everyone else rushes to respond, to defend, to get the last word. But not you. You blink. You pause. You let their energy bounce off your stillness. Why? Because every person who reacts first is always seen as the weaker one. But the one who waits? That's the one whose move everyone anticipates. Machiavelli would rather let someone believe he didn't hear them than respond before they finished talking. Because the pause is not hesitation, it's calculation. And people fear being calculated more than being openly fought. Habit 2. Speak slower, say less, leave earlier. This sounds simple, but it changes how you're seen. Speaking slower equals control. Saying less equals value. Leaving early equals mystery. Most people speak to be understood, but power doesn't seek understanding, it seeks interpretation. You want people to ask, what did he mean by that? Was he agreeing or warning me? Why did he leave when the energy shifted? Machiavelli made people nervous without raising his volume, because he never stayed long enough to be fully known. And what they can't define, they start to fear. Habit 3. Withdraw to reinforce presence. The most dominant people aren't always present, but when they are, everyone feels it. Why? Because they don't over-appear. You need to leave social spaces, chats, arguments, even meetings, before your presence becomes normal. The dog is always there. The wolf appears, then vanishes. And when the wolf vanishes, everyone asks where he went. This is how Machiavelli trained power, through scarcity. Be the one they notice is gone, not the one they expect to stay. Habit 4. Never over-explain your moves. Explaining makes sense to you. You want to be clear, honest, understood. But Machiavelli knew every explanation is a subtraction from power. You said no, say no. You changed your mind, let it be changed. You walked away, stay gone. No reasoning, no emotional wrapping, no justifying your boundaries. Because once you start explaining, you start defending. And once you start defending, you're no longer commanding, you're negotiating. And a threat never negotiates. Habit 5. Maintain emotional neutrality in social games. You'll notice how people constantly test your emotional center. They'll say provocative things to see if you'll correct them. Joke about your silence to get you to talk. Flirt, poke or guilt trip just to break your neutrality. Why? Because they can feel it, that unreadable energy, and they're afraid of it. They try to crack it because if they can't, they'll have to assume you're stronger than they are. Let them assume. Smile. Observe. Withdraw. Because the more they try to read you, the more power you gain. Machiavelli didn't just act powerful. He trained rituals of restraint, movements of control, a daily posture that whispered, "You don't know what I'm capable of, and you never will. But if you cross me, you might find out." There's a fine line between being a mystery and being ignored, between silence that commands presence and silence that fades into irrelevance. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in choosing fear instead of respect. It was knowing how to balance both, so that when you said nothing, they still heard your name echoing in the room. The final phase, becoming untouchable. Fear without respect breeds resistance. If people only fear you, they will pretend to obey, but plot behind your back, comply publicly, but sabotage privately, submit on the surface, but build resentment underground. This is short-term power. It keeps people in line for a moment, but it makes them dream of your downfall. Machiavelli knew this. That's why he didn't just command silence. He earned respect through unpredictability. Fear must be layered with controlled admiration, not love, not likability, but reverence. The kind that says, "He could destroy me, but hasn't yet." Respect without fear breeds entitlement. If people only respect you, they will praise you openly, like your leadership, trust your competence. But eventually, they'll ask for more than they give. They'll talk over you. They'll expect kindness as a guarantee. You become liked, not watched. And when people stop watching you carefully, they start underestimating your reach. The solution: tension. The most powerful people walk with tension behind them. Not drama, tension. That subtle sense that you're kind, but not to be tested. You're calm, but not to be played with. You're silent, but not sleeping. This tension keeps people emotionally on edge around you in the right way, because they don't know how much of what you show is real. And the moment people start calculating your depth, they stop trying to control you. How to build that tension? Machiavelli would do it like this. Be consistent in control, inconsistent in emotion. You're always composed, but not always warm. Sometimes observant, sometimes unreadable, sometimes slightly amused. Never angry, never passive. Just collected, but not entirely available. That unpredictability keeps them off balance. Give one moment of precision, then disappear. You don't speak often, but when you do, it's surgical. You end an argument with one line. You dissolve tension with one sentence. You correct a mistake once and leave it at that. Then you're gone. You vanish from the room. You leave the message open-ended. You don't repeat your point. And that one moment sticks longer than 1,000 speeches. That's lasting tension. Make people feel the weight of losing you without threatening to leave. Machiavelli would never beg for attention. He'd never threaten departure. But he'd train people to feel the drop when he withdraws. You stop replying. You stop nodding. You become professionally cold. You leave the room early without a word. No explanation. No closure. Just distance. And they will feel it, because your presence had value they didn't account for. Now they do. And next time, they step lighter. Let praise exist without confirmation. When people compliment you, you don't melt. You don't deflect. You don't mirror it back. You nod. You hold eye contact. Maybe a brief smirk. But you don't need to validate their compliment with submission. Why? Because accepting praise without emotional dependence tells people something terrifying. You already know you're worthy, and their words were a courtesy, not a necessity. This is how you walk the line. You let people respect your stillness, but fear the mystery beneath it. That tension? That's how Machiavelli would have ruled today. The loud ones get noticed. The quiet ones get remembered. Machiavelli didn't just want to command people in the moment. He wanted to live in their heads long after he left the room. Because true power isn't about dominance, it's about presence. that stays after your absence. And the most dangerous kind of presence? The one that never explained itself. Men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of their inheritance. Now ask yourself, what kind of person must you become to feel like an inheritance when you disappear? Let's build that version of you, step by step. Obsession isn't created by availability, it's created by distance. People don't obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over what felt close, but never fully belonged to them. And that's how you become unforgettable, by being present enough to feel real, but distant enough to feel unreachable. You give them a moment of eye contact, a word that cuts deeper than it should, a calmness that unsettles the emotionally unstable, and then you vanish. That absence becomes a psychological loop they can't close. The ultimate chessboard, orchestrating your position. Strategy 1. Don't give them what they expect. Most people reveal themselves entirely within minutes. They're overly kind, overly expressive, overly available. You smile less, speak slowly, offer nothing more than necessary. You create a contrast so sharp, it forces people to slow down around you. They recalibrate their tone, their behavior, even their breathing. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy shifted the dynamic. Now you've left a mark. Strategy 2. Let them project, then withhold. People will try to label you. He's intense. She's mysterious. They're hard to read. Let them. Because once they start projecting, they start obsessing. They'll replay your silence, dissect your expressions, invent stories to explain the parts of you they can't access. Don't correct them. Their imagination is now your PR team, and the more confused they are, the more they return. Strategy 3. Leave them mid-sentence, metaphorically or literally. Emotional closure is what most people live for. They want full explanations, clean exits, a bow at the end. You end conversations slightly before they feel finished. You disappear slightly before they feel ready. You give silence slightly after they expected a response. Why? Because that incompleteness becomes a hook. They'll go back over the moment again and again, trying to finish what you started. That's how presence becomes obsession. Strategy 4. Protect your inner world like a kingdom. They ask what drives you. You say, I'm focused. They ask if you're okay. You say, always adjusting. They ask what you want. You say, that depends on the day. You give them hints, never headlines. Because the moment someone fully knows your why, they start plotting your how. But when your inner world feels like a fortress, they stop knocking and start watching and wondering and thinking of you long after you've stopped thinking of them. Machiavelli's genius was not in being remembered as a great man. It was being remembered as a man who could have done anything and chose when, how, and if. That, if, is the hook. That's what they can't forget. You've made it to the final phase, where silence is no longer a tactic, it's your default setting. Where you don't hide what you feel, you simply decide when, where, and if it's worth showing. Machiavelli's final form wasn't loud, it wasn't brutal, it was disciplined. Because true power isn't when they obey you out of fear, it's when they start moving differently, just in case you're watching. The unreadable man cannot be cornered. Once they understand you, they start managing you. But once they realize they'll never fully get to the bottom of you, they give up on control, and instead, they give you space. Because you are now unpredictable, and what's unpredictable becomes untouchable. Machiavelli's lesson lasts forever. Master yourself, control your reactions, and turn every challenge into a strategic move. For those who cannot command their own ship are commanded by the world's storms. If you found this valuable, the next step is simple. Continue learning how to truly command. Hit the like button if this journey has given you a clearer map for building your city. Your support helps us share these vital lessons. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Keep sailing strong, keep planning, and never stop commanding your destiny. I'll see you in the next video.